On this video, I am going to look at Virgil's Aeneid and try to look at every word grammatically in that first 7 lines of the Aeneid. Let me just say a little bit by way of introduction. My main background and training, my PhD work was in Hebrew and ancient Near Eastern languages, and my seminary work was in biblical studies, my doctorate of theology. So basically, I've shared this on other videos. I'm doing this for the fun of it. I'm working a little bit in Homer's Iliad and the little bit in the Aeneid, simply as a hobby at this time in life. I'm retired as a seminary Old Testament chair professor, and in terms of Latin, I've had virtually no Latin. I had a little reading with a colleague, and we did a little bit of the Vulgate, but that's about it. And so I'm not coming across, again, as I said in my Greek tapes on Homer, that I am not a classical scholar. My field is Hebrew and ancient Near Eastern studies. And if anyone is interested, we have done a number of grammars in the Hebrew Bible, looking at each word inductively, grammatically, along with brief commentary, and also in the New Testament, Greek, as well as in Akkadian, the epilogue, for example, I have finished in the Akkadian grammar, if anyone would have an interest there. But I have been working through these first 7 lines of the Aeneid, and I'm really, if I could say it, I'm really teaching myself. And one of the things I find as I study and then share, it helps solidify it in my mind. And that's why I'm doing this. If it helps someone, I'm so happy for that. Let me just say, if you want to hear Virgil read, there are many people that are reading it and pronouncing it, reading it according to the meter, and all of that. And you can find that everywhere on the internet. What I'm going to do, though, is to try to take one word at a time and analyze it grammatically. I would like to say that one of the works that is wonderful, I should say, for learning to read the Aeneid is a book by Pharr, P-H-A-R-R, P-H-A-R-R. And it's Virgil's Aeneid, and it's a wonderful book because it gives the vocabulary with the actual text itself and with some commentary. It's probably one of the most outstanding works on the Aeneid that at least that I'm familiar with. There's probably many others that I'm not familiar with, I'm sure. One of the things that I would like to do, though, that's a little bit different, I would like to read the first 7 lines from the classic interlinear translations. And it's the works of Virgilius Maro, or Virgil, and it's an interlinear translation. And I find it very helpful personally, because it puts the reading of the Aeneid, as well as Homer, I do the same thing on Homer, in English word order. Whereas when you're reading the poetry of Latin or Greek, it's a different word order. And to me, seeing it in the English word order is a big help. And as well as the interlinear, which helps with vocabulary. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to read from that book, from that text. By the way, it was first published in 1882 by Charles de Silver and Sons. And so it goes back quite a ways in its first publication. And the title of it is Virgil Interlinear Translation. And you can find it, I believe, probably on Google Books. Another source, along with a dictionary, a Latin dictionary, that is a tremendous help to me, is the book Virgil's Aeneid, Fully Parsed Classics, it's called, Book 1. It contains the Latin text literally translated with a full grammatical analysis and explanatory notes. And the author was D.S. Elban, A.M., Master of Arts. And this goes back to 1916. And to me, it's been a wonderful help in understanding the grammar inductively. So what I would like to do is read it. And again, for someone that wants to hear it read from someone trained in classics, I would go to YouTube and find there are many readings of people who have that particular background. I will pronounce it the way I'm understanding it, which may be right or wrong at times, but I'm going to focus on the grammar inductively. So we begin, Cano arma que virum qui profugas fato, primus venet ab oris Troiae Italiam que lavina latora, multum ileactatus et terris et alto, vi superum, ab memorem iram saevae unanis, et passus quoque multa bello, dum conderit urbem que inferit Deus Latio, unde Latinum genus que Albani patris atque moenia altae Romae. And we would translate that, I sing of arms and of a man who, driven by fate, first came from the shores of Troy to Italy and the Lavinian shores. Much he or that one has been tossed both to and fro, back and forth, both on land and on sea, by the power of the gods above, or the celestial gods, on account of the lasting wrath, or the enduring wrath of cruel Juno, excuse me. And he has suffered also many things in war until he might build a city and might bring his gods to Latium, from whence or from there is the Latin race and the Alban fathers and the walls of lofty Rome. And that is the translation from the classic interlinear translations of the works by Virgil. So what I'd like to do now is to go through pretty much word by word to understand the grammar. And I'm going to do it inductively. This is the way I've studied it and the way I'm wanting to increase my knowledge of grammar while reading a classic text. I do the same thing in Akkadian, in Hebrew, Hebrew Bible, Aramaic, Greek New Testament, same approach. And even in Homer, I've been doing the same. So we begin with kano arma. Kano is the present indicative active first person singular of canere. I sing. So I sing, and I'm following the order, like I said, of the works of Virgil in the classic interlinear translation. And I think it's a good way to try to learn the grammar, because we're more familiar with the English word order than the way it is written poetically. So I sing arma. I sing arms, of arms. Arma is the accusative plural, and it means like defensive armor. So I sing of arms. And by the way, one of the things that we should point out, and this is pointed out by Farr on page 15, that the theme of the poem is the wanderings and wars of Aeneas, who after many struggles laid the foundation for the greatness of future Rome in accordance with the decree or the decrees of fate. And one of the things that we're learning as we go through, as one reads through the Aeneid, is that Virgil focused on the Odyssey, and the hero of the Odyssey, Odysseus, and his struggles, and on the Iliad. And you have both. He's going to begin with more the Odysseus side of it, and his travels and his journey back home. And then the latter part of the Aeneid will be more dealing with Homer's Iliad and the struggles in it. So that is sort of the background. He's writing this following the model, can we say, of Homer in the Odyssey first, and then the Iliad. And this, by the way, is showing a deep religious conviction that Virgil had, and a conviction concerning the gods of Rome that rule over all affairs, and the national pride he had as he chooses the material. So it's really written to show the greatness of Rome. It's my understanding that after he had finished it, he wanted it to be destroyed, but it was saved. And it, of course, is really one of the great classical writings that have we're left with from that period of time. So kano arma, that is the arms, ke virum qui, that is, and the hero who, or the man who. Virum is an accusative singular from vir, meaning man, and qui is a relative pronoun. We think of qui, quai, quod, the relative pronoun who. So I sing of arms and the man, or the hero, who profugas fato, driven by fate. Notice profugas is an adjective, and it means that which is driven, or like a fugitive. So a fugitive by fate. And it's looking at Aeneas's travels after Troy was defeated by the Greeks. And he was traveling all around. This is where there is that parallel with Odysseus. Profugas is the adjective, and it means fugitive. So a fugitive or driven fato by fate. Fato is the ablative from fatum, and we would render it then by fate. Fate is driving Aeneas through the perils that he goes through. Primus vinet ab oris Troiae Italiam que lavina littora. First, he has come from the coast of Troy to Italy and the Lavinian shores. Notice primus is the superlative adjective meaning first. We have primus, prima, primum. So first, he has come. Venit is the perfect indicative active, third person singular from venio. So he has come ab from the coast of Troy. Notice ab here is the preposition that takes the ablative, and oris is the ablative plural from ora. Ora, orai, if we were going to parse it. So it's from the coast of Troiae, of Troy. Notice Troy was the city of Phrygia that the Greeks defeated, and following this, we have the journey of Aeneas. Then as we move on, he came to Italia, to Italy, che lavina littora. Italiam is the accusative. He came accusative of place. He came to Italy, and che is the conjunction and the lavina littora. Lavina is basically the accusative plural neuter, and it means sea coast. So the sea coast, and by the way, this is a neuter plural, as we said. Latium was founded by Aeneas in honor of his wife, Lavinia, or Lavina. So, and the Lavinian littora, the Lavinian shores. Notice littora means shores. It's the accusative plural from the noun shores. So from Italy, or to Italy, and the Lavinian shores, or Lavinian shores. Multum ille jactatus et terris et alto vi superum ab memoriam iram salvae unanis. That is, much that one, or much he. Notice multum is the adverb much, and ille is the demonstrative pronoun. Adjective, we could render it he, or that one. He, jactatus. Jactatus is being tossed to and fro, or thrown about. It's the perfect passive participle, nominative masculine singular from iachio, to throw about or to toss about. So he has been tossed about, or he having been tossed about. Et here means both and. Et both terris on land, et alto on the sea. Notice terris here again is the ablative plural from terra. Think of terra firma, firm land. So it's terra, terrae. It's that conjunction, or excuse me, that declension, feminine with the a and the ai. So tossed about both from lands and, or on lands, and on the sea, alto. Notice alto is the ablative and it means sea, singular, from altum, which means sea, on land and on sea, on lands and on sea. We superum, by the power of the gods above. We is the ablative here, and we could translate this by the force, and it's from vis, force. So by the force or power, superum. Here we have the genitive. In poetry, instead of superorum, the orum becomes superum in the genitive poetic form here. But it is a genitive plural by the power of the celestial gods, we could say. Ab memoram iram, on account of the lasting wrath. Notice here, memoram, ab, by the way, it means on account of. It's the preposition on account of. Memoram is the accusative singular feminine from going with wrath, on account of the lasting wrath. And notice here, it means the unforgetting or the mindful, always there, not forgiving, not forgetting. Iram, wrath. Iram also is the accusative singular. We have ira, irai, if we were going to the genitive. So from the lasting wrath, accusative singular, in the here, sawai, of cruel. Sawai means cruel. It's the feminine genitive singular of cruel, Eunanis, of cruel, Juno. And notice we again have the genitive. Juno was the daughter of Saturn, who was sister and wife of Jupiter. And in the little reading I did, I was told that while she was faithful to Jupiter, who was not faithful in his to her, basically she was a very, I guess you'd say, jealous or angry person, unforgiving. I was noticing online when I looked it up that Juno harbors anger toward Aeneas because of several things. Because Carthage is her favorite city. And there was a prophecy that holds that the race that would descend from the Trojans would someday destroy Carthage. So Juno basically is trying to prevent Aeneas from getting to Rome in this poem. And also Juno holds a permanent grudge against Troy from where Aeneas is coming from because of Paris, another Trojan, who judged Juno in a beauty contest, a rival contest where Venus won out in the beauty contest. And as a result, as to who would be the fairest in this divine beauty contest, and Venus beat her. And so Juno basically is not happy, as she is constantly bearing a grudge. And she was the Roman goddess of love and marriage, Juno. So she's going to do everything she can to prevent Aeneas in the poem from getting to Rome. She has the great wind that's caused by Iolus to make it so he would be shipwrecked, and everything she can do to avoid his getting to Rome for these reasons. So then we go on. speaking of the lasting cruel wrath, let me just make one statement here that I thought was interesting. When you read the way it reads in the actual poetic order of the Aeneid by Virgil, it reads, "Vi superum saevae memorem unanis ab iram." That is, on account of the celestial gods or beings, or by the power of the celestial gods, on account of, and here we have literally of the cruel, and then you don't get to of the cruel wrath until later. In other words, what you have here, Iram salvai memorem unanis ab iram, or Saiwe memorem unanis ab iram, that order, and this is interesting, is what is called an interlocked order. And I'm getting this information from Farr, who writes on page 15 the following. He writes this, that an example of what is known as interlocked order, Salve modifying unanis, and memorem modifying iram. So on account of cruel Juno and on account of the remembering wrath. So the order is often found in Latin poetry, he writes. It's called interlocked order. You have salvi going with unanis, right? And then memorem modifying iram. And then the ab is just your preposition on account of. So it's just sort of an interesting point in looking at the Latin. That's why it's easier when you're first learning, I think, to read in something like this interlinear, because it puts it in what would be the English order. It doesn't just follow Virgil's poetic order. So on account of the lasting wrath of cruel Juno, or Unanis, and then we move on, et passus quoque multa bello, and he has suffered also many things in war. Notice et here is your conjunction and. Passus is the nominative masculine singular perfect participle, meaning to endure. So it's the perfect participle, nominative masculine singular, to endure. Having endured, or having suffered. And then we move on, multa, having suffered, also we could say quoque, which means also simply the conjunction, having suffered, also multa bello, many things. Notice multa is the accusative plural, neuter from multus. So many things, an accusative plural adjective, bello in war. Bello is your ablative from bellum, meaning war, in war. And then doom is the temporal conjunction until conderet urbum qua inferit, until he might build a city. Notice, following this temporal conjunction, conderet is the imperfect subjunctive, imperfect active subjunctive, third person singular from condere. to establish, until he might establish a city, urbem. Urbem is the accusative singular from urbs, orbis, meaning city, until he might build a city, and K, and here we have the conjunction, inferet, and might bring the gods to Latium. Notice inferet is the imperfect active subjunctive, third person singular, meaning to bring, until he might bring, and we could supply his gods. Deus is your accusative plural from deus in the nominative, his gods, latio, to Latium. Notice latio is the dative singular from Latium, and Latium was a country of Italy in which Rome was situated. So he's defining clearly, Virgil is, the goal of Aeneid in his travels. Unde Latinum, unde means it's the adverb of place, from which Latinum, Latinum is the nominative neuter singular from Latinus, Latina, Latinum, belonging to Latium, from which is the Latin or Latinum race, genus. And genus means descent or birth or race. It's the neuter, and again, we have it in the singular, the Latin race, and K, Albani patris. Albani is the nominative masculine plural from Albanus, belonging to Alba, which is the mother city of Rome. So we're going back to the fathers of Rome. And then he goes on, atque moenia altae Romae. That is, and, atque, and, by the way, patris is from that familiar word pater in the Lord's Prayer. We have that in the Latin Vulgate. And moenia, the walls of lofty Rome. Notice moenia altae Romae. Moenia means probably like it's a neuter plural, defensive walls, looking at the fortified city of Rome. And the walls, and here we have the genitive of lofty, altae Romae, of lofty Rome. And notice here we have the genitive singular after moenia, and altai is your genitive as well, and Romae, that is of lofty Rome. So that finishes the first part, which is the way that Virgil is beginning to introduce his theme of the poem, and about the wanderings and struggles of Aeneid, and how he's going to lay the foundation for the greatness of future Rome, and in accordance with the decree, as far says, of fate. So I'm going to stop there, because the next will come to the invocation of the muse. And what I think we could do then is read the way it's written in the order, the poetic order of the way it's written in in Virgil. Arma verumque cano, Troiae qui primus ab oris, line 1, Italiam fato prafugas, Laviniaqua venit, line 2, Littora multum ilia terris jactatus et auto, line 3, vi superum salve memorem unanis ab iram, line 4, multa quoque et bello passus dum conderet urbem, line 5, inferit que Deus latio genus unde Latinum, line 6, in Albanique patris atque altae moenia Romae, line 7. So you can see the word order is different because of poetic emphasis in the meter that Virgil is writing this poem in. And again, as I've said, I was not really ever taught pronunciation, and so bear with me in my pronunciation. I hope the grammar helps. I hope the vocabulary, the approach to reading it in English order, at least it's helped me to try to better understand something I've never done before, and sort of enjoying it as a hobby. So I hope this is helpful. The jealousy of Juno reminds me of the sadness when people have a bitterness and a jealousy and all the problems that comes from it. And I'm thinking, as a minister and as a retired seminary teacher, in the New Testament, how that there's that constant emphasis, even in the Lord's Prayer, of forgiving. And this is something that it looks like Juno was not able to do. And so I see a negative role model in Juno at this point. Well, thank you. I hope this might help somebody.